Hello, and thank you all for coming. This is a community outreach subcommittee meeting with the participation of the full school committee. I will call the subcommittee meeting to order at 6:59 p.m. This meeting is being held remotely as an alternate means of public access pursuant to an order issued by the Governor of Massachusetts dated March 12, 2020, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law. You are hereby advised that this meeting and all communications during this meeting may be recorded by the Town of Hingham in accordance with the open meeting law. If any participant wishes to record this meeting, please notify the chair at the start of the meeting in accordance with Massachusetts General Law 30A 20F so that the chair may inform all other participants of said recording. I know that Hingham Harbor Media is recording tonight. Is anybody else recording? Okay. Tonight's virtual coffee is one of a series of coffees that was instituted last year to give Dr. Austin an opportunity to meet directly with parents and staff, to share information, answer questions, and to learn more about the community. Dr. Austin will provide some general information and then we'll take some questions. We have scheduled an hour and do have to end promptly at 8 p.m., but we will try to get to as many questions as possible. To ask a question, please use the raise hand button in the participants tab. As a quick reminder, when called on, please turn on your video for those in the audience who use assistive hearing technology. Please state your name and address. Please limit your questions to one question per person, and please limit your question to 2 minutes. As we are unlikely to get to all of the questions tonight, as we do have to stop at 8 p.m., we encourage you to keep coming to all of our other meetings. Next Monday, February 8th at 7 p.m. is a school committee meeting with a public hearing on the budget. You will have time to ask questions and make comments on the fiscal year 2021-2022 proposed budget. And the school committee office hours will resume on Tuesday, February 23rd. And now, Dr. Austin, I turn the mic over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you need to call the school committee to order tonight? I just want to make sure that that's not.
No. No, we don't need to do that.
Oh, that's right, because you called it to order on this one. I'm sorry, you're right. All right, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Nice to see everyone tonight. And I see that we've got a very large crowd out there. So it's always nice to see lots of people here. I normally would start with a brief statement. I'm really not going to do that. I know that there are lots of questions. I do want to say something about pool testing very quickly, though. And it's one, we sent Callie Nee, the chair of the school committee, and I worked on a communication today that we sent out, was kind of like a frequently asked questions about some of the questions we were receiving about pool testing. And I'm going to refer you to that. I don't want to take a lot of time tonight. I mean, if that's the questions that people have, I'm certainly willing to answer them, but there is some frequently asked questions that we were getting to respond to. But I want to be clear with everyone. The idea of pool testing was put in for one reason and one reason only, and that is to best support the health and safety of our public schools. And that, you know, we, as a Commonwealth, it would have been nice to have pool testing many months ago to help us provide surveillance of what COVID-19 was doing in our schools. It's kind of a mystery in that regard, and now that we have that ability, I'm very excited for that opportunity. I know there's been a lot of discussion about that on social media, but I want to be very clear. The intent that I have is to do my very best to protect all of our students, all of our staff, everyone that's involved in Hingham Public Schools, and that's the idea of pool testing. So hopefully you can refer to that document, and that'll answer some question. I know there's some folks on tonight. If we really get into the depths of pool testing, we're not going to do that. But with that, thank you for coming tonight, and Libby, I'll turn it to you to grab some questions. And I do want to say, the other day when we were doing this, we had people asking 1, 2, 3, 4 questions at a time. I'm only going to be able to answer one per person, because if not, we end up with 10 or 15 minutes to try to answer 3 or 4, and we don't get to very many people. So I really want to be respectful of all the people that are here and try to get to at least one for as many people as I can. So thank you. Libby?
Okay, so we're going to start with Sarah S.
Thank you. Hi, Sarah Sigovich, 21 Free Street. I understand that there are a lot of hurdles we need to overcome in order to get our kids back in school. Space, lunchtime, need for subs, paras, and I feel confident with some creative thinking we can overcome those. The hurdle that I'm more concerned about is the union and our current contract, and specifically the 3-week green-gray stipulation. My question to you is, what does the union require in order to remove that from the contract? What is going to change their decision to not be tied to this metric? Thank you.
Well, Sarah, first of all, thank you for the question. And you know, I can't speak for the union. I'm not the union representative. They are, and so I can't tell you what they're going to need for them to sit at the table with us and say, this is what I'm going to do. I can tell you this: a lot of the things that I'm hearing out there that either, you know, demonizes one side or another, that's just not the way it works. The way it's working is we are talking, and we agreed as a group, right, both the school committee, the administration, and the HEA, to sit down every 2 weeks, and we continue to bargain. We discuss these things, we do new proposals, we work through them one at a time. All right, and you know, we understand that the things that we did a few months ago, you know, because I want to recall, you know, when we talked several months ago, I heard in the community, just tell us the metrics, tell us what you want. You know, tell us what people want. We develop metrics. We hear now that you don't like those. We understand that. We will continue to talk about those, and we will continue to work through them and do what we all want to do, which is bring kids back to school as quickly as possible. Thanks for the question.
Okay, and next is Steph Patel.
Hi.
Hi, Steph. How are you?
Good. How are you? I'm Stephanie Bertel, 451 Main Street. I am just asking about the pool testing. Obviously, a lot of parents were concerned when we got the emails either last night or today about the pool testing, and it was something that a lot of us don't feel is right to be done to our children who have already been through a lot. And the anxiety, the ADHD, the depression of our children because of the fact that they're not in school is a lot. And we feel that it's not really right for them to be held accountable when no one else is. If they were going full time, my children even said, if we get to go back to school, that's great. I will be tested. I don't care. But we're still only going 2.5 days a week, Mom? And I said, yes. And that is kind of what our sticking point is. What do we get for our children to be tested randomly for COVID whenever, you know, it's deemed that they're in the right pool? That's just our question.
I don't know how to even respond to that. I got to be honest. I don't understand the logic. We have an obligation. My obligation is, I hope that tonight is going to be respectful for both sides. I don't understand the logic when we say that what we're doing is to make sure that everybody is in our school. We're going to do our very best to make sure that everybody's healthy and safe, and that we stop the spread of COVID-19.
Respectfully, I don't agree, because our children have done a lot to stop the spread of COVID, and they have gotten nothing. So what are they going to get right now from being randomly tested for COVID whenever it's deemed like they're in the right pool?
Understood. Thank you. If you want to go on.
Yep, I'd like to call on Wendy Driscoll, please.
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me?
And Wendy.
Great. My question is on vaccination. And I think many of us are interested in your position on this, Dr. Austin, and your expectation of teachers for return to school. And before stating that, I just wanted to read a statement from a local superintendent who provided that, this is his words, quote unquote, "I just want to be clear, when teachers are vaccinated, it's my expectation as superintendent that we go back full in person at that point. Could you provide us your expectation of teachers for vaccination tonight? What's your expectation? What's your position?"
My position is I hope we all go back to school as soon as there's vaccinations and it's safe to do so. I have no problem with doing that. Whether I tell you that that's the expectations all teachers do that, I think we all know that that's negotiable items, but I would expect that, I would hope that we'd all go back to school. I want to be clear, you know, I know that people think that I'm somehow stopping your children, or that's what you think. That's not what we want. That's not exactly what we want. We want these children. I want the children in school. I want them in school. I want them in now, and I'm going to continue to talk about that.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ryan Lynch.
Hey, I'm just trying to get my video on. Can you hear me?
Ryan, we can, there.
All right, I got you now. There you go.
Okay. Ryan Lynch, 6 Concord Circle. My first read, I think Dr. Austin answered one of your questions, why we have concerns about the union, is when the president of the union stated that teachers spent their summers updating their wills, insurance policies, and looking into funeral arrangements. It left an ill feeling in most of our minds about what their objective was. My question for you is, after finding out this week that Hanover, the next town over with higher positive tests in their school system, has a plan to go back March 1st, 4 days a week, the very next town over, and we have nothing, no plan whatsoever. How can the town next to us have a plan and us have nothing lined up?
Well, I would correct you. We don't have anything lined up. You know, we have a plan lined up for first 2-5 coming in, but that's tied to metrics, which are people what are upset about. So it's not that we don't have a plan. We don't like that plan the way it is. We get that. We are sitting down with the union. We understand it. People are moving, and it's been different. We made that plan 2 months ago. We made that plan before anybody else did. Things have changed now. We need to continue to sit down, and we need to renegotiate things. And that's exactly what we've all agreed to do, and we'll continue to do that. I understand the frustration. I've got it just like you do. I want our kids back in. We want to make conditions, and I want to do whatever I can. And part of that was the pool testing to get to us to a point where we're all feeling comfortable that we can go back into school and be safe being there. That's absolutely part of the plan. We have to make it so that people feel confident doing it. But we're not saying nothing.
Just real quick, I agree with that woman who spoke. The pool testing, I think many more parents are on her side than any idea that if you think we're going to allow our kids to get tested now is just mind-boggling.
Okay. And it's not, and it's voluntary. If you don't want to do it, that's fine. We're voluntarily offered. We have over 500 people who are doing it, and that's a good place to start. And so we'll do it with what the people who want to do it and feel comfortable doing it.
Okay, thank you. We're going to move on to Chris Sigovich.
Yeah, hi, Dr. Austin. I believe strongly that you want the kids back in school. I believe that. I guess my question is, and I don't mean for this to rile things up, but at some stage, do we start talking about, you know, teachers who want to work in town in person? I'd go as far as to say replacement teachers even. And I hate to even say that, but as I think about different labor disputes, right, whether it's in sports, whether it's in manufacturing, right, the union generally doesn't cave until there's pressure on them. And candidly, the agreement that's in place today has no pressure to get them back into the classroom. So I'd be curious to your view on, is that something 7 months in advance of September? Are we thinking about an aggressive hiring effort to bring teachers into our town who want to teach in person so that we're prepared for the fall? I'd be curious to hear your position on this idea.
Yeah, you know, talking about the fall, I do believe that we'll be in fall. That's the plan for fall. And I think the other thing that I would say is people are feeling pressure, believe me. Everybody's feeling the pressure. Everybody wants to find a way through this. We're not, and I don't want to give the impression again that we're not sitting at the table. We are very much sitting at the table. We are very much hearing what you're saying to us, and we are very much trying to figure a way forward. We need to do this. I have no doubt. I have grandchildren. I've had 4 of my own children. I want them in school. And I think, you know, I appreciate that you at least understand that that's what I want as well. And we just have to keep on working to it until it happens. And then, you know, in my budget that's coming up, we have 33 or 34 new positions. We will do a very rigorous hiring process and get the very best teachers here. And, you know, we just need to keep moving forward. This is hard on everybody, but we can't stay stagnant. We've got to move in. We get that. I understand.
Okay, thank you. Constance Bennett.
You're on mute. Hi, thank you. Usually I'm just listening. So, hi, Dr. Austin. Sorry about that.
That's no problem at all. Thank you.
So this is Constance Bennett. I'm on 44 Pleasant Street, and I have a question regarding pool testing as well. So I actually feel really good about the pool testing. I think it's a great idea to get everyone back to school, as we're even personally at 100% remote right now, because we have a sick grandfather who needs to be taken care of. But he's getting vaccinated, so we'll be in soon. Anyways, so you said earlier, so far 500 have opted in. What happened? So from my understanding, the pools are probably going to be within the classes, not only the cohorts, to make sure that you get the right amount of kids that interact with each other. So let's say half of the class or the intended pool opts out, but there's a positive and the pool turns out to be positive and needs to be retested. What happens to the other kids who have opted out and haven't been tested whatsoever, who may or may not be the culprit in causing the pool to turn positive?
So I'm gonna, let me make sure I understand it right. So if we're in a classroom, and a classroom is a cohort, and so out of that classroom, we say, you know, we've got 11 children. One says, no, I'm not going to do it. 10 do. We test the 10, and one becomes positive. So what would happen? We would retest those individually right after. We have a new Binex now, the Abbott Binex now. We can test immediately and determine which one of those individuals tested positive. We can do that in a 15-minute block after we get results back. Once we get those results, we would do our contact tracing, whether you participate or not. We would do our contact tracing like we do it anytime. Right now, because if we get a test now that's positive, which is we've had over 140 student positive anyway. So we contact trace, and we would then, just as well as we do now, whether you test in our school or you don't. And so what would happen is, obviously we would look at the close contacts and decide who's been a close contact, whether to quarantine or not. So it doesn't necessarily mean that somebody else in that room has to test. It just means if you're a close contact, you would be considered a close contact and would have to quarantine.
Okay. All right. Sounds good.
Does that make sense? Yeah. Thank you.
Makes sense.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you. Next is Heather Vaughn Smith. Heather?
Yep. Sorry. Hi, Heather Vaughn Smith, 17 Free Street. Hi, Sarah. Hi, Chris. I think, Dr. Austin,
yes.
I have not met you personally, but I want to thank you for your work, and I want to thank the school committee for their work. I truly believe your efforts are all gearing in the right direction. But I think the time has come where we really need to get these kids back in school. I know you all feel that way, but I think we need to do that. I may have missed a few meetings, where I don't understand what happened with the Wednesday, if we could put them in full time and at least start getting something in addition to, 2 half days a week. I'm sort of curious as what your thoughts are based on what the new CDC director has just spoken relative to vaccines and teachers, et cetera. Because my personal feeling, this is not about pool testing. This is about a unit. And that's where, I understand you're not going to give us all the information, but that's what it is. So again, I do appreciate your time. I appreciate your efforts, but let's be truthful and let's be real and let's say what it is. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job, Heather Jo. No comment?
I don't think there wasn't a question. I thought it was a comment.
Yes, there was. Yes, there was.
Oh,
yes, there was.
I'm sorry. I missed it then, Heather. I apologize.
Okay. I was asking what your thoughts are based on the CDC's, new CDC's director's comments in the past couple of days.
I haven't had a chance to even look at that. I have not seen what the new CDC has said yet, to be honest. So I haven't seen it, so I really can't comment on that. But I couldn't agree with you more that I think that our kids need to be in school. We do get that. And I'm going to continue to try to see if we can do that as safely as possible. And I also want to talk about, I know that people are talking about negotiations and people are very concerned about that. These are not, these negotiations have, we have a professional attorney that's a labor attorney for education. Who doesn't do just us, but does many others. I've been in years and years of experience and doing negotiations, and we're all struggling through some things that we've never had to negotiate before. And on the union side, we certainly have the HEA, who has a lot of experience, and they're represented by the MTA. And so we will continue to work collaboratively with that group and use our expertise to best serve the students. And we have to always remember that the students are it has to be the forefront of what we're talking about. And it has to be the number one issue. It is my number one issue. And I don't want anybody to think for a minute, you can think what you want. Some of you I've never met. But the reality is it's the first thing I think of in the morning. It's the last thing I think of when I go to bed at night. I worry about our students. I worry about the health of and safety of our folks that are in the buildings. And I'm doing my very best to keep everyone safe and to keep us moving forward.
I do believe that, and Dr. Austin, if I
Heather,
can just
Heather,
tell you.
I'm so sorry, Heather, but your time is up, and we're going to have to move on. So I'm going to call on Julie Donovan next.
Send that to someone.
Great. Hi, thank you for calling on me, and thank you, Dr. Austin, for these coffee sessions, or in the evening, it's probably tea sessions. I hear the dialogue about the union, and I see lots of correspondence about what's going on in Hingham. I've lost track. Whose decision is it, Dr. Austin, to bring the kids back to school? Whose decision is that?
Well, it's a collaborative. You have to have it as an agreement between the association and the school committee. I have an authority. For my authority is whether I open up school in the morning or I close it. That's my authority. Now, when it comes to the changes of when the school, what the hours are, how often the children are there, et cetera, is a working condition that has to be negotiated. So it's not a decision that I can make unilaterally. It's not a decision that they can refuse unilaterally. It's something that has to be negotiated. Those are the things that we continue to work on every session.
Okay, so to net that out, it's the union that's deciding when our schools will be back in full time. Is that correct?
No, it's between the two of us, we discuss proposals of whether whatever we propose from our side, looking at what do we want, and them talking with us and collaborating and deciding. You're absolutely negotiating those terms. So it's not, okay. No one side has an advantage over the other. We continue to negotiate those. Those are all negotiable.
So, okay, that's good clarity. So you shared that you wake up every day and your only goal is that the kids are back to school. So we know your opinion, you're very transparent about it. So then we have got to just apply common sense and assume then that the union has the opposite opinion, because otherwise you would say would be back in school tomorrow and they're not. Is that a fair assessment?
I thought we were only going to do one question, but I'll answer it. What I'm saying, I don't think that's a fair assessment. I didn't say the only goal that I had to get into school. My goals are, obviously, I said I think about that every day, and I have absolutely thought about it every day, every night, every morning, everywhere that I'm at. The other thing that I have to do is to make sure everyone's safe. We have to ensure that the safety of people. I don't know the union's opinion about it. I'm not going to discuss what the union brings to the table or what their opinion is. I think that's up to them. I think there is some reason to believe that people are nervous about being in school. We hear all kinds of things about, what the spread is, et cetera. And so my job becomes, how do I create a safe enough environment where people do feel comfortable to feel like they can come in and advance more in-person learning? Again, that's what I want to have happen. So thank you.
We've all heard that students and teachers are quite...
Okay, I'm sorry, Julie, I'm sorry, but we're going to move on now. Thank you. We're really just, this is a one question per person, and I'm sorry, we have to move on to give everybody, many people as possible, a chance.
Questions?
So we're going to ask David Del Sesto to ask his question, please.
Hi, thank you, Dr. Austin. Thank you, school committee. And most of all, thank you, parents, for asking very pertinent, fantastic questions. A little bit of my background. So I'm a board certified practicing infectious disease doctor in the Boston area, internal medicine practicing doctor. So have a fair amount of, I've been dealing with coronavirus really pushing a year now. Frontline worker, been facing this every day. Working a lot, obviously, so I haven't had a ton of time to engage in these type of things. So this works out good. It's late at night. Basically, I just need, there's about 350 people on this call right now. Dr. Austin wasn't able to look at the recent data from, she mentioned from Rochelle Lewinsky, who I know peripherally. She's a new head of the CDC, she's from Mass General. Basically, the hint was that schools are safe to reopen. Teachers do not need to be vaccinated for schools to reopen. There has been an abundance of data really over the last 2 weeks about schools reopening, the safety of schools reopening. There was a recent report in MMWR, that's Morbidity and Mortality Weekly Report, which is really the most reputable up to speed journal from the CDC, produced on a weekly basis. A big study out of Wisconsin noting that schools can honestly safely reopen if mitigating measures are put in place, which are being done, and pool testing is actually not part of that. So my question, I have to boil this down to a question. I'm happy to take questions from anyone on this call. Hopefully it's your lucky night. I'm here for you. If the current data is really suggesting that schools are safe to reopen, this is published, this is data, this has been in JAMA, New England Journal of Medicine, and MMWR. Why are decisions being made incongruent with these most recent data? You said that we made these decisions 2 months ago. Coronavirus has been rapidly evolving over the past year. So we have to evolve.
Ask your question now, David, please, or I'm going to have to cut you off.
Seriously? He's asking it.
Yes, we're doing 2 minutes.
Enough.
So go ahead, Dr. Austin.
I just want to make sure you're asking, David, I'm not sure exactly what the question is. If you want to ask the question.
Sorry about that, Dr. Austin. My question is, the most recent medical data, this isn't an opinion from anyone, this is the data that schools are safe to reopen if the mitigating measures are put in effect that we are doing. Why are decisions being made that are incongruent with the most recent medical data? And this is data over the last 2 weeks. What are we doing to re-change those decisions about the green and yellow?
The quick answer to that is this, Dave. We are going back to the table again, and we will continue to talk about that, absolutely. This is not a done, what we have in place is subject to amendment, and we will continue to do that. You're right, brand new data. We haven't had much of a chance to look at it, but we will certainly do that before we go into the next session next week. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh,
you have great
thank you. Next is Valerie. Next is Valerie Robbins.
Good evening. Thank you. So I have what's going to sound like a technical question, but I think it contributes to the larger issue. And I'm hoping that either you, Dr. Austin, or somebody at the high school can give me sort of a broader understanding. And if it's a school board issue or union issue, you can identify it. So recently, from what I understand, and I got the information from various sources, including the kids, is there's this concept about asynchronous work to be done in what I best can be determined is periods 7 and 8, which is the 12:05 to about the 2:30 time slot. Now, some people normally pre-COVID might be taking electives during that time. Some people also might be taking a valid study based on their course load. I'm just wondering, because the message my kids are getting, which is sort of what I care about, and I'm all for learning, is that this is going to be extra work to them. It's not going to be time that they can do their homework. So for example, my kids would have normally had a study. That's what they should be doing, their homework, or they would have taken an elective. And if just someone can explain a little bit the thought process, because listening to all these union school boards issues, I'm sort of thinking that this was something that or at least it's sounding like to me, was just thrown out there as a compromise. And in the end of the day, I want my kids back in school. I want more learning. But, you know, I do want a little thoughtfulness, and maybe I missed a meeting or two. I read through the slides, but I don't really understand that. So at least so I can talk to my kids about it. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm going to call on, I know Rick Swanson or Katie Roberts. One of you want to talk about that, David? Talk about the high school program? Maybe?
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Austin. The, you know, the term asynchronous remote learning has been used a lot recently, and it aligns with the language that the State Department of Education has used to help us bring some structure to the remote learning time of the day when students may not be engaged in synchronous learning. And I think it probably looks and feels to a lot of people like what they were used to experiencing as homework, because it is work that is developed by a teacher and assigned to be conducted outside of regular school hours. But under the, you know, the current system that we've designed, where most of our live synchronous learning is happening between 8 and 12:05, and then we've got a lot of students who are engaged in live experiences after that, but many of them have what might have been, were they in the building, a study period, an opportunity to do that work and to be considered as remote asynchronous learning time. And it's still it's considered part of a structured learning day, but is done asynchronously, and then with the opportunity for them to check in later with their teachers, whether it be later in the afternoon during the extra help time that's offered live every day, 2:15 to 2:45, or it could potentially be done later during the day.
And just to add on to what Mr. Swanson was just articulating, I think one of the other, as we begin term 3, there's, you know, there are students starting new courses, and term 3 is always a little bit of a rejuvenation as you come out of the holidays and you've got past Martin Luther King weekend and you're sort of resetting and the kids are getting back into, again, the new semester. We're trying to get them set on a rhythm. And so it's a typical time for all teachers to sort of do a little bit of a reset. And I know that within the school, the high school in particular, we sort of tried to refocus some of those kids really on taking advantage of that 2:15 to 2:45 time. And in doing so, there was definitely some articulation, you know, hey guys, when you leave at 12:05, get into that work, start focusing in on that work, because you have the opportunities to turn around and meet with your teachers later on in the day, rather than wait to come back and talk to them, you know, tomorrow or the next day. The state language that Mr. Swanson also referenced was also clear that there should be flexibility in due dates as well. And so that's where sort of that melding of, you know, is this homework that's due today at 2:15, or is it something that's better due at, you know, tomorrow when you see the kids again in class? So there is some flexibility in there, but I think maybe what you're hearing from some of your children and students or friends is their teachers sort of trying to put that re-emphasis back on when at 12:05, get into your work so that you can come see your teachers for extra help and really get that, take advantage of that. So,
well,
just,
that's a good message. I don't think that's the message that's being conveyed. That's a very different message versus very simple. This is not your homework. This is going to be extra work. And that has a, you know, negative. We're talking about emotional well-being. That doesn't sound, I mean, the way you framed it sounds totally understandable. I think it makes sense.
Okay.
Thank you, Valerie.
Thank you. Thank you, Valerie. We're going to move on to Allison Douglas, please.
You, Allison Douglas, 9 Isaac Sprague Drive. And my question is about the pool testing, and it's kind of a logistical question. As I understand it, if there is a positive pool test, every member of the pool will get retested with the rapid retest. And Dr. Austin, I think you described that as happening immediately. And my question is, like, what does immediate mean? And is there a chance that the kids who get this retest will miss any in-person time as a result? The whole day, half the day, an hour and a half? So how immediate will the retest be?
Yeah, I think that's, and I'm going to look to a couple. I think Tony, Tony, you might be, Katie, you're on the line, and or Deb Whiting or Callie, either one.
So Tony Key, the Pennsylvania Elementary School, and helping to oversee the logistics of the pool testing program. So in talking to CSC Health, our goal is to get the specimens into them as early in the morning as we can. And they told us that we should be able to get tests back by the end of the same day. So then we'd be able to implement the rapid test either that day or first thing in the morning of the next day. So we would minimize any lost time. So that's our goal.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tony.
Okay, Laura Struzery. Laura Struzery, please.
Hi, thank you.
Laura, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, thanks.
I'm just gonna, I understand this is difficult. I'm just gonna make one statement and then I have one question. I wanna add that in addition to Hanover, Quincy and Cohasset are both going back full-time for grades K to 5. I work in one of these communities. I'm a member of the union there. And while I personally agreed with the decision to return, the union did not. The school committee and the superintendent drove the decision. That's my statement. My question is, while I understand there are differences between communities, logistical, all sorts of different metrics, how can we not, I'm trying to get a sense of the logistics of how we can't even provide one full day when other communities are going back 5 full days. Just any insight you could provide. No lunch, no alternating Wednesdays. I'm not, not even if we're even talking about getting to 5 full days, which I believe is where we should be. But any insight into the great discrepancy there would be appreciated. Thank you.
Yeah, first of all, and if I could just say something, I know that people are really, I know that this is a really hard night for folks. I know you're passionate. I know you care for your students, and I hope that you know that I do as well. And that, we're very serious about trying to get the students in. We're not going to stop trying. We're going to keep on working on that. I do want to turn it over to, one of the elementary principals who can talk a little bit about logistics of the longer day. And again, I think these are things that we're facing. It doesn't mean they're not overcomable or they're not going to change, but I think they can give insight about what that challenge is in the afternoon. So I don't know, Mary, Tony, somebody want to talk about a full day of what the logistics are in the afternoon?
And before that, somebody needs to mute, and we're getting some feedback. Everybody else make sure they're on mute, please.
Mary Eastwood, are you on?
Yeah, absolutely. I was just waiting for the muting.
Thank you.
I'm glad that Dr. Austin has stated and everyone else has stated that we are constantly vetting through every idea. And of course, up until now, it's been space. And we actually meet every single day, all 4 of us. And we are talking about the logistics of that. So those things are being considered. And there will be a lot of juggling that we'll have to do, a lot of space shifting, but we are definitely considering that. So I don't want you to think we're not, we are. And we're working on it. As a matter of fact, we have a meeting at 9:15 tomorrow morning.
Thank you, Mary.
Okay, thank you, Mary. Megan Johnson, please.
Oh, hi. Megan Johnson, 59 Old County Road. Thank you again for your time, Dr. Austin. I guess I just want to go back to your question. You had said you meet approximately every 2 weeks with the union. So I guess in the interest of how fast things are changing from a metric standpoint, from a cases standpoint, from the schools around us and how quickly they're going back standpoint, why isn't it more frequent? And I guess it's a 2-part question in the sense that I've been on a bunch of the coffees with the school committee as well, and a couple of things that were thrown out were talked about bringing in a consultant to kind of help figure out in the areas where we're lacking in getting the kids back to school, and why isn't there an outside body helping to kind of guide that? I've read, in some places that has worked very well in other districts in fast tracking the process and actually getting these kids back in the classroom.
Mm-hmm. That's if you've got some ideas of who that is, that would be great. You can send it to me in an email. I'd be interested in seeing those companies that are doing that. I think the other part of that is that it's not that we don't meet more frequently. Sometimes we do. But we're also negotiating, unfortunately, about 3 or 4 different contracts at the same time. So there's just logistically, there's only so many hours in a day to do that. I think the other part of that is that each of them have a representative, where I could set up any time of day, 5 days a week or 7 days a week for that matter. They have representatives. We have professional attorneys that are also representing multiple school districts, and they have MTA reps that are representing multiple school districts. So it's not always easy just to get multiple days at the same time. But it doesn't mean that we can't do it more often. What we'd agreed to, and what I was talking to was the MOA, said we do it at least every twice a month. That's at least. It doesn't mean that that's all we do. And oftentimes we do that more. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Becky Leary is next.
Hi, can you hear me?
Here you are.
Hi, Becky.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How about you?
Good, thanks. My question is just, I know the spacing is an issue, but I'm just curious with the current plan as it is, 6-foot distancing, is your expectation for these classes to be at the max? You know, middle school, 12 to 14. Should that be, who's in there?
Yeah, that's my expectation. And I mean, I'll be honest, because the, not that I haven't been honest yet, I hopefully have been. We talked about the last MOA because we knew that we had, you know, particularly at the high school where we had more students who were going remote to be able to fill those classrooms. And since that MOA went into effect, which was January 11th, we've added 80 more students to the 50 at the high school and 30 more at the middle school that are now attending 4 days a week. There are certain conditions that, you know, we're obviously wanting to get to those students that are struggling in the online program, either academically or are struggling emotionally, or social emotional functioning is suffering. Those students can be added to the classroom, and that's an important factor. I apologize, I keep on looking all over the screen because everybody changes, so I like to look at who I'm talking to, so I'm sorry if that does that.
I'm just wondering too if the parents are like a big part of that evaluation as far as the social, emotional, and the actual effectiveness of their remote learning at home. Is that to be considered if there's room in the classrooms?
I think absolutely, Becky. And what I would say to you, if any parent, I'd say this to you and any parent, if you have a concern about your child, reach out to either the teacher or the principal and talk about that option and to see if that's an option for your child. I would absolutely encourage anyone to do that. We do have some space. You're right. There are classrooms that we could add more students to. I think that's probably more true at the high school and the middle school. But certainly reach out to the principal, and I encourage you. So, thanks for the question. Great question.
Okay, Maura Gallagher.
Sorry about that. Hi, I just wanted to ask, has there been, I would be interested in if there could be an opportunity to have Labor Council participate in one of these coffees so that they can hear directly from the parents what our priorities are and concerns are. So we can, and I'm sure you convey them, but is it possible to have Sarah participate in one of these sessions?
Yeah, I would say that's not my call. That's actually a school committee call if they want to use because their attorney is actually the school committee attorney. If they feel that that's a good use of that time. I would also say, so that would be something that we could talk to Chairman Nee about and the school committee. But I would also say that, yes, the concerns that are being raised are absolutely, without question, being conveyed very clearly and openly to our council.
And I know we're limited to one, but quickly, could I also ask if there's been any thought to doing an open negotiation session so that parents can see? I'm a labor attorney, so I understand the process, but most parents, this is something very foreign, municipal, labor law and negotiation, but perhaps an open session so that we can see how the process works.
Yeah, that I really am not what I would say is that both sides, as you know, as a labor attorney, have to agree to such conditions. So I can't speak to either side if that's without vetting that through our attorneys. I hear you. That's always, it is an option. There's no doubt.
Right.
Thank you.
And there's also the option to negotiate to impasse and then go to the DL and then implement.
I got it. I know. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Maura. Heather Chisholm, please.
Hi, thanks. Heather Chisholm, 8 Black Horse Lane. Since we can only ask one question, I'm just going to keep it simple. Realistically, with these obstacles, schedules, and such with the middle school and the high school, I think parents just want a straight answer. Will middle school and high school go back by the end of this school year?
I would really like to hope that that's the case. That is I absolutely want that to happen. And you know what I'm really appreciative of people. I know they've been patient. I know they want to see more. We know that our communities around us are actually doing a lot of movement. We get that. I feel that every single day. I feel the pressure, no question. I am absolutely working as hard as I can to try to do that and make that happen. There isn't a day that I don't call the health department and try to figure out when the vaccines are coming. And I know that, and that's another reason why to put the pool testing in, is to make another tool available to us to make this possible, if at all possible. So absolutely, I'm hoping that it is. There's nothing I want more, believe me, than to have our students into school.
Thank you. And not another question, but it just seems to me a really big red flag that 424 students at the high school are completely remote. And from what I'm hearing, a lot of them are just kind of giving up.
Yeah, I think that's, obviously a concern of ours too. And, we don't want that to happen either way. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I do want to try to remind people to limit yourself to one question, please. And so we're going to move on to Hillary Jennison.
Hey, everyone. Thank you so much. I just want to clarify, I am speaking not on behalf of the Hingham Anchor, but solely as a parent right now. And my question is, do you have the ability to survey your staff on their thoughts and feelings about returning to school and concessions they may be willing to make? Because it's on my understanding, I don't think that the union is doing that. So I don't know if you have the ability to do that and if that might help in negotiations. Thank you.
Yeah, it's not without I'd have to have the consent of the association to do that. I'd have to have their, I can't unilaterally just do that and get that information without their permission.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Susan Ahoy.
Hi, just a quick question about the quarantining. So if someone is determined to be a close contact, how long do they have to quarantine for?
We use, we're using the DPH and CDC standard, which is, and is Deb Whiting, are you on the phone, or Callie? I'll let the nurses answer that are much better at it than I do, and they're the ones that are applying it.
Hi, Paul. Hi, Dr.
Hi, Callie. Thank you. Are you okay answering that, or I can
Yeah,
shoot it?
sorry, I was just doing a little cleaning up, but so the guidelines are new, relatively new, since December, and it's 7 days, 10 days, or 14 days, depending on how you test.
So if you're a close contact, I want to be clear, it's 7 days. You can test after 5 days and return on day 8. If you are asymptomatic and don't test, you can return on day 10, right? And if you are symptomatic during any time, you can return after 14 days. I think, Callie, is that correct?
Well, you would not return on day 10, but day 11.
Okay. All right, day 11. Thank you.
So 14 days, you have to be asymptomatic.
So, and is that for the teachers as well, or is that just the kids, or both?
All.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Susie.
Okay, thank you. Rebecca Lynch.
Rebecca Lynch, you in?
I am here.
Hi, Rebecca. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Let me mute over here. So I guess my concern is the here and now. Given all the givens, I don't know when we're going back. But I want to talk about the robust and rigorous hybrid learning that we were promised. And I guess my question is, how is that being overseen? And with the idea that we've got a lot of negotiations to go, it's, what is it, February 3rd? And I'm really concerned about where we are academically in the elementary school. My concerns are with that we find out that elementary students are receiving 2 math lessons a week. We are finding out that pacing guides are being adjusted, that it doesn't seem like it's known that we're not getting the robust education that we were promised, that daily lessons are not happening. If you're a remote student, you're actually so remote that you're removed. And I guess I want to know, like, who's overseeing this? Who's making these decisions about, is this an HEA agreement that was made that only 2 math lessons would be taught a week? That is a huge problem in terms of these kids missed all of spring. So if you have a 2nd grader like I do, he missed a huge chunk of learning last year, and we're still going at a snail's pace now in 2nd grade. I've been told that with 100% confidence, they will meet the standards. And at this point, I don't have 100% confidence, to the point where I pulled my child. I have taught for 2 decades in urban districts. If we want to do the whole thing, I have a master's degree from Harvard. I have an undergraduate from Boston College. I know this in and out. You cannot get through the standards teaching 2 lessons a week. So my question is, who is overseeing these decisions about the robust hybrid learning that we were promised from the summer? Who's overseeing these large decisions? Is it Dave Jewett who's making the math decisions? Is it school-based? Because
Rebecca,
I can't wrap my head around this. Is it HEA who said we're only teaching 2? Because I do know that a teacher said,
I'll answer.
I'm contracted to teach 2, I'm only going to teach 2. That hurts.
Thank you.
Thank you.
First of all, it's not in the MOA that only 2 lessons are given. That's not decided by the HEA. That is decided, that is overseen by the assistant superintendent who's in charge of academic programming with the principals and the directors. And if it's an elementary question that you have, I will turn it over to any of the directors or the principals that want to speak to that real quickly.
I'll take on the math question in particular. I mean, we work in our elementary math committees. We work in weekly committees with all the teachers. They're meeting constantly. The development of the lessons and the pacing guides, again, if you want to put responsibility, falls on me as K-12 math director. Every elementary grade is a little bit different in how we approach it, because every elementary grade has a different number of standards, as you clearly know. In our previous program, and I understand, believe me, I hear people's concerns when they say, how are we going to cover everything? So last year in particular, and I understand the learning last spring, not everybody attended to the learning the same way in terms of their own individual responses. But as a district, we actually covered our standards at the end of last year. We were able to do that. We had the time to do that. We got through what we needed to get through last year. This year, we started, well, we didn't even start this year. We started over the course of the summer.
Move along faster.
Re-evaluating, I'm just trying to answer Mrs. Lynch. So we spent time over the summer sort of re-evaluating what were the most important power standards to get through, what were sort of our enduring standards in particular. So if we're considering skills that, math is, as you probably understand, is taught sort of in triplicate, right? There's an introduction of an idea. In one year, it sort of gets, just touched on. The next year, we'll flush it out a little bit more. And then in that 3rd year, you may apply it. So something like maybe measurement, you're learning to measure to an inch one year. The next year, as you're starting to develop your fractional understandings a little bit more, maybe you're taking those fractional understandings and applying measurement in particular to half inches to quarter inches.
Excuse me, David. Are you saying that you think they can accomplish this teaching 2 lessons per week, 2 in-person lessons a week, you think that we can cover grade 2 standards?
So a lot
Yes
of
or
what
no?
we've done this year is focused on instruction, moved a lot of our assessments. We took a lot of our we have a cyclical program, so we took a lot of our cyclical assessments out of that so we could focus on formative assessment. We took all the games out of it, and then we definitely cut some of our standards. We had to.
I want to get back to how much instruction is happening in a
Can I suggest this, Rebecca?
Rebecca, I'm so sorry. Rebecca,
I just
I'm so
suggest this
sorry.
really quickly.
We
that,
are really, yeah. Go ahead, Dr.
Well, I'm just going to say, Rebecca, I think you can email David, and I'm sure he'll answer your call.
That's what I was going to say.
And please do that, and you can have that conversation.
I have, and nobody gets back to me.
You haven't emailed me?
Thank you very much. We're gonna move on. So we are running low on time, and we might get in 1 or 2 more questions at this point. So I'm gonna call on Jamie Opedisano.
Hi, thank you. Jamie Opedisano, 8 Independence Lane. And I just want to make an observation. I'm struck by what seems to me a disconnect. When people talk about the union, they talk about it like this ill-intentioned monolith, as though it's completely separate from individual teachers. And those are the teachers they love. Those are the teachers at the end of the year. They're happy to get a little gift card or flowers. And I think there's a relationship between those individual teachers you love at the end of the year, and you show them your appreciation, and that union. I think there's a relationship there. Just my observation.
Thank you, Jamie. And if I can, I know you didn't ask me a question that I think that's really important. And we've seen a lot of that this year. And I know that people are frustrated, but you are correct. Those teachers, and we have exceptional ones, and you have been, this community has always loved our teachers. And the HEA is our teachers. There's no separation. They are represented by those HEA, and we have exceptional teachers. I support them 100%. And I know we all want to get back in school. And I know we're all frustrated. And we all feel it. And but I can't agree with you more. These are the teachers we all know and love. And I'd be proud to have my grandchildren. I've spoken often about having my own children and grandchildren, and I'd be proud to have them as part of this as well. So thank you.
Okay, we do have time for at least 1 more. Dee Stefani.
Yes, how you doing, Mr. Austin? How you doing? My name is Dennis Stefani over here. And the thing is, right, you guys mentioned 3 to 6 feet, right? I'm sorry, I can't be as lenient as the last gentleman. You know what I mean? Saying that, stop enough pampering the unions, okay? Get these kids to school, because they need to go to school. No, listen, I'm not done yet, okay? I'm the last guy. You got some time for me, all right? Enough. These kids need to go to school, all right? And your job, superintendent, is to go to the union meetings, whatever the negotiations, and tell the teachers, hey, back to school and teach these kids. Because this is, hey, why'd you guys shut me off?
No.
This is a public school, and we pay a lot of money to come here and live around here. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So these kids need to go to school. They said 3 to 6 feet. So what's the problem? 3 to 6 feet? Huh?
Okay, thank you. We've heard your question. Question. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. All right. What's the answer? You got an answer?
We're working on it. That's what I'll say.
Saturday Night Live. You working on it?
Eric, I hear you.
2.5 months? 2.5 months?
Thank
really?
You. Thank you, Mr. Stefani. Maybe we do have time for 1 more from Nick and Melissa Proya.
I agree with him completely.
Do your job.
You're right. I agree with you.
Okay, we're looking for Nick and Melissa Proya, please.
Hi, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Hi, Nick. I got you.
Hi, Dr. Austin. Thanks for your time tonight. I know you're not in an easy position here. Based on what we heard about pool testing, it sounds to me like there's 2 primary goals, one being to slow the spread within the community, and the other being to hopefully show that the virus is not being spread through our schools so that we can return safely full time. You agree with that?
Yes, I do.
Okay, thanks. So my question is, why do we think it's like on the town of Hingham to show that there's not a spread within the schools? Like, why does our town need to demonstrate that before sending the kids back to school? Like, are other towns having to prove that It doesn't feel like it's a local problem that Hingham must prove that there's no spread, but other towns must not. Do you understand my question, what I'm asking?
I do, but I'm not sure that, Nick, what I would say is that I didn't put that in to say that I need to prove that they need to be in full time. You asked me if I agreed that that would help us do that. Absolutely. And I agree with that. But I also put that in because it helps us monitor the spread itself. Now, I would agree 120 districts have signed up for pool testing across the Commonwealth. So what's that, about a third of the districts? And we'll use that because that's how I can make sure that your child, when they come to school, is in a safe environment. And that gives me that data to be able to do that. There's no question about that. Do I also think that that data is going to be very useful to us to be able to say, look, we don't have the spread that people are afraid of? You bet. And I want to use it for that purpose. But I also want to make sure that, number one, that your child is there and they're safe. And that, we can control that. I mean, we've seen that. We've tested hundreds of teachers. I mean, we've done hundreds of tests on teachers. We had one positive out of that. And that's important data for us. That's incredibly important data. We also know from the districts that have done pool testing that they have very, very low, positivity rates for students. One district, I believe, and what I was told yesterday, I can't remember which one it was, that actually has had the last 30 days without a positive test for a student. That's incredibly powerful data of getting people to feel comfortable of that we're in a position where we've got control of what we're seeing and that we've got control of our data. So I think it has many purposes, and I see it as a very positive thing. I get that people don't look. I get it. My own granddaughter hates to test. I get it, and that's what I'm saying. I'm not going to force anybody to do it, but want to make it available to people who do, and certainly support that the best I can. Thanks for the question.
Thank you.
Okay, and with that, it is 8 o'clock, and I am going to ask my subcommittee member a motion to adjourn. Michelle or Ness
more time.
Make a motion to adjourn.
I think people need more time. There's lots of questions.
We're ending this meeting at 8 o'clock. If
People need some more time.
Motion to adjourn, I would appreciate it.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you.
I agree. People need more time.
No,
People need more time.
We did not get enough time.
People need more time.
You have 370 people on here.
378 people. You need to give people more time.
Could you put me on that list?
Folks, just as one of the school committee members on this call.
Vote a new one in.
Okay, I second the motion to adjourn. I would like to just let people know that people do have
370 people.
And the administrators and the school committee members and the teachers that are on here, we also have to get back to our own families. We have to get to our own jobs, our own responsibilities. And we hear you, and we offer office hours. We offer school committee meetings. You know our email addresses. So we are very sorry that we can't get to all the questions, but we do have to call it a night. And thank you so much for your participation. I'll second your motion to adjourn.
Can Dr. Austin stay on?
Yeah, we can stay on with
thank you. I'm going to adjourn this meeting at 8:02 p.m.